Have you tried paper piecing? In this video, I show you how. Hello there, Michelle Shorts here with Terrific Tags with Michelle. Today I have a tag to share with you using paper piecing with stamped images. So let's get started. This is the Painter Flower Chamomile Outline Stamp Set, and I'm going to be stamping the image with the chamomiles in the jug. I just thought it was such a pretty image. I'm stamping it down onto some classic Crest 110 solar white cardstock. So I'm just placing the image in the Mini Misty here. I can pick up the stamp with the Mini Misty door, and then I can ink up the image really well using permanent black ink. This is a great ink that you can use with lots of different colouring mediums. Today I'm going to be using alcohol inks. So I'm stamping the image down onto the cardstock, and I do re-ink it and stamp it for a second time just to make sure that I get a really nice dark impression. I then want to do some paper piecing, so I'm looking at the alcohol ink backgrounds paper pack, and I'm going to see which piece of paper I want to use for the stamping. I'm going to paper piece the jug so that it just looks a little bit different. I could definitely colour it with alcohol markers like I'm going to do for the rest of the image, but I actually thought it would be really nice just to create kind of like a little pattern on it. So I've taken one of the pieces and I've cut that down here, as you can see, and I'm just figuring out exactly where I want to stamp the image on that piece of paper. In the end, I did find that I needed to kind of turn it slightly so that I could get it so that it was a little bit darker on the right hand side and a little bit lighter on the left, and that's just going to help when it comes to shading the image. So I've stamped that down, and because the paper has got a slight coating on it, I'm just going to set that aside to dry, and then I can colour in the rest of the image. So I'm using some yellow alcohol markers for the insides of the flowers. This is the Pocketful of Sunshine collection, and it's from the Sunshine Valley Garden Artist Alcohol Markers Set F. So I'm starting off with my darkest shade, which is Honey Drizzle. I'm then blending that out with the Maple Yellow. I do jump between the different tips of the markers. It just depends on how I'm feeling at that particular time. Most of the time I do tend to go for the brush tip. I'm then blending that out with Maple Yellow, and then I go in with Fresh Lemon and Citrus Burst. And then, although chamomiles are kind of like a creamy colour, or very pale if not white, I decided that I actually wanted some purple on these. I am still keeping it quite light, but because my jug is going to be kind of like purpley blue, I did want to kind of make it look a bit like they would kind of reflect the light on them from the jug, so, or the colour I should say, rather than the light. So I'm just adding a small amount just around the flower centres to start with, which is my darkest shade here. I'm just using 2 for these flowers. This are the Shades of Purple collection from the Mediterranean Terrace Garden Artist Alcohol Markers Set B, and this is the Lavender Fields colour. And I'm just kind of flicking here, as you can see, and then I'm going in to blend that out slightly with the soft lilac, and I'm actually not being too precise here. I don't want to go towards the end of the petals, I want to keep them white, but I just want to blend it out a little bit, and as I say, just add a little bit of colour onto these flowers. I don't necessarily want them to appear completely purple, but I also did want to have a bit of colour on them. And if I've got any kind of harsh lines, I'm using the Colorless blender just to blend out those edges. So I'm just going over most of the areas here, but again, I'm not being too precise. I quite like it sort of like a sketchy look. So this is just going to blend out some of those harsh lines and kind of fade it to white. I'm then going to fussy cut out the image using scissors, leaving a small white border. and then taking the piece that I stamped onto the paper, and this time I'm going to cut it either on the line or kind of just inside of the line. I'm trying my best to sort of move the paper rather than my scissors, trying to keep my scissors straight and move the paper. That's personally how I prefer to do fussy cutting. This did take me a little while, and I did end up doing it off camera just because I had to kind of get it right up against my eyes. I'm then placing the paper pieced image over the other image to see if there's any kind of like white areas or anything like that I may have missed. And I felt that I cut the bottom of the jug a little bit too close. So I'm going over the bottom with a kind of dark purple colour. In the end, I didn't really need to do that because once I add this shading on top and then I can go around it with a black pen, you don't really notice that. But what I'm doing here is I'm adding some shading onto the paper piece so that it kind of fits in nicely with the rest of the image. I don't want it to look like it's paper. I want it to kind of look a bit like I'd coloured it in. And although I wouldn't be able to probably colour this in real life, because not only has it got a lovely pattern from the kind of alcohol ink look, you could do this with any kind of patterned paper. You could do it maybe with like a check or a plaid or something like that. But the one great way of kind of fitting it into an image and it not actually look like it's just placed on top is to add some shading onto it. And I'm using purple markers here because I've already used these markers in the image, so it just made sense for me to do so. But you could do this with greys or something like that as well. So I'm just going in with these purple markers. I used Deep Iris, Lavender Fields and Soft Lilac. And then I'm going back in with the Colorless blender again just to blend that out. I'm now going around the edges using the brush marker from the fine liner set, and this is just going to remove any of that white core of the paper, and so when I kind of place it on top, it's going to make it look like I'd cut it out perfectly. So I've added some adhesive onto the back of that, and then I'm just placing it down onto the other stamped image. And as you can see here, I think that looks really nice, and it doesn't necessarily look like I've added a piece of paper on top. I've then cut a tag using the Terrific Tags die set, and I've also cut a scrap piece of paper from the Essential Black and White paper pack, and I'm going to adhere that down onto the bottom of the tag. This is going to make it look like the jug is actually standing on something rather than it just floating in mid-air. So I've added some glue tape onto the bottom of that tag, and then I can place the piece of paper over the top. I'm then just going to try and finish it off with sort of a little bit more of a neater edge by just cutting a very small strip of black cardstock and placing that over the top, and then I can just cut the excess off of the sides. I've added some instant dimension foam tape onto the back of the flower piece, and then I can pop that on top. And the great thing about tweezers is that you can kind of hover the image over the tag, and then once I'm happy with the placement, I can then press down. I have heat embossed a sentiment from the Chamomile set, and I have cut that into a strip. I'm adding some instant dimension foam tape onto the left hand side and some glue tape onto the right hand side. And then I'm going to place that down onto the tag, just using a T-square ruler just to help me out, trying to make it as straight as possible. I'm then adding some twine through the top of the tag, and I'm going to tie that in a bow. And then I can just cut those tails down. I did think about adding some embellishments to the tag, but ultimately I liked it as is. But for a finishing touch, I'm just taking a white gel pen and I'm adding some white dots to the centres of those flowers, just where the darkest areas are, just to add a little bit extra onto the image. So let me know in the comments if you've tried paper piecing before. I wouldn't necessarily do it on such a detailed image, but I really love how it turned out. And like I said, there's no way that I could colour that jug as is. I think it looks really pretty with the paper. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description bar on YouTube and also over on the Altenew blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.
Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.